Hey guys, Eric and Jim here to do the Rewind Theater for the first trailer for Marvel's Daredevil. Suffice to say, this is a show we're pretty excited about.
Yes,
huh?
I actually saw some footage at New York Comic Con, some of which is in this trailer. We get, of course, our first look at Matt Murdock, played by Charlie Cox from Boardwalk Empire and Stardust. And one of the things I like about this is they are keeping the characters' kind of Catholic angst from the comics.
Yeah, I think we'll talk a bit here both about what Jim saw at New York Comic Con. So we're going to go into spoilers for footage that they agreed to show, and for some stuff that Stephen DeKnight, the producer, told me. And he said that the Catholic aspect of the character he felt was integral and really had to be included in there. And there, we get this whole framing device.
I think this is the first time we see him probably fighting crime, but without any sort of costume.
Yeah, because we'll talk about his costume a bit more, but it seems like they definitely took influence from The Man Without Fear, the miniseries by Frank Miller and John Romita Jr., which was really kind of his version of Year One, him getting started, and so this is probably before he has any sort of costume.
But he does have glorious abs.
He has glorious abs.
And slightly reddish hair.
You refer to them, Jim, as the Marvel abs.
That's right. You work for Marvel, you get abs.
The best workout program there is. Yeah.
That's right.
You get a look here, though, of course, that he is scarred, bruised. Like the Affleck movie did include that aspect of this is a guy who's going through a lot.
But he's waking up. Get the sense that maybe he doesn't even know where the hell he is. But this sequence gives you an idea of sort of the way that they're going to illustrate his powers. In this case,
radar sense.
His hearing and stuff, and just it's a bit more down to earth than the way that the Affleck movie did it.
Yeah, you can see how everything's blurry and then kind of focused in one place.
And of course, shot on location too in New York.
Yeah, which is really cool. The whole thing was shot in New York.
Okay, now this guy here in the middle, notice his busted nose because he's going to pop up again a little bit later in this trailer. Now here, though, this is the interesting thing. We think this is the death of Matt's dad, battling Jack Murdock.
The boxer.
The boxer who would not take a fall, because you can see the period clothing. It looks like it's late 70s, early 80s, and you can see a little boy kneeling over a man's body.
Yeah, and I know that maybe the clothing is even maybe a little older than it should be for Charlie Cox's age, but I think that's probably intentional that they're going for this sort of retro look there.
Even the NYPD's outfit. Okay, now Deborah Ann Wall as Karen Page.
Yeah, and this is interesting because Karen Page was, Daredevil's first love interest in the comics, but introduced in the 60s as a very sort of lighthearted, kind of one-note character. She was their secretary who had a thing for Matt. But based on what we're seeing here, because we'll go right here to, this is Foggy Nelson, played by Eldon Henson, but seems like she's been arrested,
Yeah. The New York Comic Con footage, basically, they take her case, even though they've basically just started up. Their office is pretty bare. They don't even have bills to send her yet. And it looks like that she perhaps is somehow framed or killed a guy in self-defense, maybe.
Yeah.
But
we're assuming this is her right here.
Right.
It certainly looks like her.
The New York Comic Con footage did show that she essentially has a cell phone with some sort of vital information related to public corruption that she has stashed in an apartment that we're going to see in a little bit. I wonder if this guy wasn't the original owner of that phone.
Yeah, and very interesting way to introduce Karen, because like I said, she started out as a very light character. Later on, her story would get incredibly dark. So I feel like they're kind of leaning towards that earlier here. I mean, tonight when I talked to him, referenced the fact that Deborah Ann Wall said that at New York Comic Con, Karen doesn't, something about she doesn't attract trouble, she is trouble.
I mean, even the way they cut it in the trailer with you see cocaine and then you see her.
Yes.
Now, who's this fella?
Now, that would be Scott Glenn has Stick, traditionally the sort of martial arts mentor.
Blind mentor.
The blind mentor for Daredevil, played by Terrence Stamp in the Elektra movie. Another great actor, but kind of wasted in that film. But Scott Glenn just seems, if you know this character from the comics, this
guy is perfect.
This is dead on. And DeKnight told me that he actually really was interested in Sonny Chiba for this role.
No kidding.
For a little while. That didn't work out, but Scott Glenn's name came up early, and then it came up again when DeKnight saw The Leftovers and was like, wow, look at Scott Glenn. He's so great still. We need to get him. He called Damon Lindelof, said, I hope this won't interfere with your shooting if we want him. He said, no, it wouldn't. And so,
fantastic.
Yeah. And Glenn was in.
Okay, now that, if you can go back just a wee bit, that chain, that's going to, that sound effect is part of what helps Matt catch one of the bad guys later
Ah,
in the trailer.
there you go. That always makes, yeah, Daredevil can always use those
Now
sounds
let's
around
see, who are
him.
these folks here now.
Oh, you
Um,
know, we should talk because I have a feeling we were talking about this right before we started recording. The gentleman with his back to us with the
yeah, the older
glasses,
man. Yeah.
we think that's probably the owl.
Yeah, Leland Orsi, or no, I'm sorry, nope, getting his name wrong.
Bob, it's not the actor,
It's Bob Gunton is
yeah,
the actor, and then
Leland Owsley.
Leland Owsley, yeah, because he was later, it was cast a little bit later than the rest of the actors.
Yeah, so that's probably him. You know, the Owl is a longtime big crime boss in Marvel. We're guessing there's got to be
He's going to
some
work with Wilson Fisk.
well, we're with or maybe against. You know,
Yeah.
we'll see how
Now,
things go.
these must be. We're thinking these are probably Wilson Fisk's kind of like cufflinks and tie pins and stuff like that. I guess cufflinks because there's two each.
And then speaking of it,
Here we go. Now, this was
there's
shown
the
at
man
New York
himself.
Comic Con, and it was a very interesting scene because that's Wilson Fisk, played by Vincent D'Onofrio. You guys, of course, know him from Full Metal Jacket and a bunch of other things, but he.
Thor in Adventures of Babysitting.
Exactly. And this is the first time he meets Vanessa, who will become his wife, and he's staring at this painting, and he says that it makes him feel lonely. And it's a very vulnerable way to introduce this guy. And so the Daredevil series is going to be as much about Wilson Fisk's origin as Daredevil's. And D'Onofrio has described Fisk as basically a kind of like a cross between a monster and a child.
And even, you know, Fisk's love story with Vanessa is pretty important in the comics. It's kind of his Achilles heel. And so I think in the show we're going to get that idea.
And she's played by, I'm probably going to get her name wrong, Ayelet Zura, who was Lara and Superman's mom in Man of Steel. And, of course, who's this?
That would be Rosario Dawson making a very quick cameo in this trailer, but playing a character named Claire Temple, which is interesting. You know, when she was cast, we didn't know the character name, and then they revealed as Claire Temple. Claire Temple is traditionally a Luke Cage supporting character and love interest. That's interesting because we know that this is the first of all these other shows that'll interconnect, including Luke Cage.
You know, though, she was not at New York Comic Con, but they did reveal that her character is a night nurse, and they showed a scene of her tending. She finds a wounded Matt Murdock in a dumpster, and tends to him. He won't give up his name or anything, so she refers to him as Mike, which she said was the name of an old boyfriend who also kept secrets from her.
And Night Nurse in the comics was a totally different character, but someone who did become a sort of nurse to the superheroes who can't go to anyone
Kind of
for
like
help.
Leslie Tompkins is to Batman.
Yeah, but to several superheroes, and here they're kind of, so it sounds like they're turning two characters into one. They're taking Night Nurse and Claire Temple and making it one character.
And it would be a great kind of thing since we do know Luke Cage and Iron Fist are coming to Netflix.
And Knight even told me that he wanted to really explore the fact that this is a guy, he said, is Batman without money.
Yeah.
And we would want to explain how it is that he's getting mended.
And I think Jeff Loeb also said that he's one bad day away from being Frank Castle.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the costume because that's kind of, I guess, controversial maybe.
But it's very much right out of The Man Without Fear. I mean, it's the exact same sort of design, although you do see the red piping there on the costume.
They do. They have the nod to his future with the red piping. When I talked to Knight, he said he really wanted to use this early version of the costume because it is Matt's formative time.
Right.
It is him becoming the hero he'll become. The costume will evolve, he indicated, through the season. So I don't think episode 2 he's going to be wearing the red costume, guys. I do think maybe by the finale, which again, we're going to be able to binge watch this. That'll be a day of your life.
You'll just have to wait 12 hours.
Yes.
Come on.
But I think we'll start to see him kind of make tweaks to it throughout the season, and maybe in that finale he'll get something much more closer to the classic costume. Or maybe they'll save it for season 2 or the Defenders. We'll find out.
I'm waiting for the scene where somebody tells him, "No, it's not black." What?
Right.
Damn it, I'm colorblind.
But yeah, if you and all blind, if you read The Man Without Fear, that's the major influence here for sort of Matt's first ever costume that he wears. Although it does look a bit like the Trial of the Incredible Hulk
Exactly, it really
version,
does.
which actually predated Man Without Fear. That's the funny
I
thing here.
know. It's
and
great.
then we're just getting an idea here. I mean, look at
What's on his sleeve there?
So no, it's not his sleeve. He's cut. And I was going to say that we'll talk about this in a bit at the end here. But yeah, I mean, he's kind of messed up. I mean, he's showing.
This is not a guy in Kevlar either.
No. I mean, Knight was mentioning to me, it's like you have to remember he has superpowers of a kind, but they're not physical. I mean, yes, he's amazing physical fighter, but he doesn't have superhuman strength or anything like that.
I
But
mean, he's a fairly average-sized guy.
yep, yep. So when he gets hurt, he's gonna feel it.
Now that apartment that he's going into is the apartment where Karen Page has gone in to retrieve a cell phone, but Wesley, Kingpin's lackey, who has martial arts skills, and you're seeing him fight Daredevil in this one sequence, is in there and has assaulted, knocked out Karen Page to take her phone. But lo and behold, Daredevil shows up to start some fisticuffs.
We're gonna see a bigger explosion in a minute, and I wonder if this is like a place nearby, or is there multiple? Could be multiple explosions, because this is obviously kind of like a. Is this a home? Actually, I thought it was a restaurant at first, but maybe it is someone's home having a nice dinner when things go bad.
Not anymore.
But yeah, these are very quick cuts. If we weren't doing this slow, these are extremely quick cuts. But it really gives you an idea of this is kind of very sort of Bourne-esque, hands-on fighting that we're
now
seeing
that's that scene. This is in the rain, and that's a different fight, I believe, because he is fighting Wesley in the other scene, and I don't believe Wesley was in a suit, if I remember the footage correctly. And then that's dude who had his nose busted in the other shot. We're thinking this is what leads to him getting his nose busted.
Yeah, this is probably that kind of like the first sightings of Daredevil, and then he has to kind of report to his bosses about this guy who kicked their ass.
This guy's some sort of Daredevil.
This guy's some sort of Daredevil.
And then that's Wesley and Matt falling through the window in the apartment where Karen was attacked. That, again, is part of the New York Comic Con footage. The way they cut it, it looks like she's seeing that happen, but she was actually knocked out.
Okay, but she's seeing something there.
Yeah.
And then, but yes, Daredevil is obviously a very agile guy. You get a look at that right here. And again,
and then there's that chain I was telling you about.
Yeah, the chain that he will use his abilities, his powers to.
I'm assuming that's where he gets the cut on his sleeve that we saw.
Yeah, it looks like the same sequence.
That sodium kind of lighting.
And then here's that bigger explosion I was talking about, which may be what blows that other window open, or maybe there's just a lot of Hell's Kitchen. They've got a fair share of explosions.
Which is funny because Hell's Kitchen in New York is no longer the Hell's Kitchen that it was.
I will point out with that explosion, bottom left are two figures, one of whom may be Daredevil. So there's some brawling going on when that explosion happens. And then
it looks like he's at the art gallery where Kingpin was, and I believe that Vanessa actually runs the art gallery.
And then we believe it certainly looks like that is Kingpin right there.
Yeah.
And this, this is probably the first time Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk meet.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they speak to each other in the scene, but or have like maybe an encounter.
I do wonder, will we see the Kingpin in his kind of classic white coat, or is he just going to happen to be a big bald dude?
He's also, again, it's his origin story, it sounds like, just as much. And tonight really stressed to me that one thing this story will explore is who's better for the city. Who they're both, Kingpin is a crime lord, but he is kind of cleaning up the city in his own way.
Right.
And so whose sort of brand of justice is in the long run best for the city.
And he kind of said at New York Comic Con as well that, there are going to be episodes where you don't know whose side you're on.
Mm-hmm.
That, maybe Matt's way is wrong sometimes.
Right. I mean, definitely, even here, just the fact that throwing the dude on the car, we're going to show that this is a vigilante in the true sense.
Yeah.
And in a way that we haven't seen yet in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is really cool. And then, we get this this final shot here, which is kind of says it all as far as this approach.
And I believe this is the sequence, again, from New York Comic Con, we saw them go out the window in the fight, him and Wesley. They land on the ground. He gets knocked out and flashes back to his dad battling Jack
Murdock.
Battling Jack Murdock, giving him sort of a bit of a pep talk about hitting the books. You don't want to end up, beaten up like your old man. Can't you see what I've become? And then he realizes his son, he knows his son is blind, but he kind of slipped up verbally, takes his son's hand and lets him feel his face and how kind of battered, swollen, and disfigured it is from fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he's like, something like, get back to it, Matt, and boom, he wakes up.
Mm-hmm. But Circle of Life, because he's getting the hell beat out of him, or as Danae put it, he's getting the crap beat out of him, because this is really what they wanted to show. This is our first street level Marvel hero in the MCU, and I definitely
so
think
that's not maple syrup from his pancakes.
Not maple syrup, no.
Okay.
And I think this shot really kind of ending the teaser on this shot is really trying to hit home, no pun intended with the hitting, who this guy is in comparison to the other heroes we've seen in this world.
This isn't Captain America or Iron Man.
No, so we're really excited about this. We'll have plenty more to say and plenty more to watch when we get 13 episodes of Daredevil on April 10th. Thanks, guys.